Everybody talks about PPP, so public-private partnerships, but I always put an A for academics because the universities, some technical schools, engineering, they are so important because they work on certain subjects and we can absolutely benefit from these studies and this partnership.
Hi, and welcome to Public Key. I'm today's host, Jim Lee, the Global Head of Capacity Building here at Chainalysis. Prior to this role, I spent nearly 30 years at IRS Criminal Investigation as a special agent, the last 4 as the chief, and therefore always happy to talk with another fellow law enforcement officer. In every episode, we aim to connect past experiences to the future of investigations, compliance, and security in the digital age. Let me ask you this question. If we look 5 to 10 years into the future, what will matter more to the next generation, their digital life or their physical one? In this special Live from Links episode, I explore that very question with Patrick Guyon, the Chief Cyber Strategy Officer at the Geneva Police Department and an active member of the Interpol Metaverse Expert Group. Patrick provides context around the creation of Switzerland's Regional Cyber Competence Center, or the RC3, and the progress law enforcement is making in the Metaverse while encouraging police departments to strategize for future threats, training, and the integration of AI. But before we jump into the episode, in the spirit of law enforcement efforts combating crimes involving crypto, I'm happy to announce that the FBI, with the help of Chainalysis, was able to trace and freeze millions of dollars worth of crypto connected to the Caesars Casino ransomware attack. In 2023, Caesars Entertainment was hit by a $15 million ransomware attack carried out by the Scattered Spider Group. If you want to read all about the role Chainalysis and private-public partnerships played in the recovery efforts, head down to the blog link. It's in the show notes to see all the amazing graphs, charts, and insider details. Now on to the episode. Patrick, it's great that you're here in New York at Links 2025, coming all the way from Geneva. I love sitting down with like-minded law enforcement folks as a career law enforcement officer myself. And for those that listen to this podcast that might not be familiar with the Geneva Police Department, can you just introduce yourself and give us a little bit about your department?
Great pleasure, of course. Thank you very much for having me. First of all, it's a great opportunity to come over here and confront ideas, meet many very inspiring people. And Geneva Police is so in Switzerland, the French-speaking part of Switzerland. My background is I worked, first of all, 5 years in Swiss banks. Then I worked a couple of time in Asia. And in 1997, I started a police academy in Geneva for criminal police. So I started my career there. It's almost 28 years now. Well, I started in regular divisions like narcotics or burglary department, for example. And in 2003, they built the first cybercrime department, as we call it. I joined at this point, the cybercrime department, 2003. I worked there for 10 years, and then I became the chief of this department. In 2015, I joined the management board of criminal police for 8 years. Interestingly, in 2023, I got this position that doesn't exist in the system. It's Chief Cyber Strategy Officer. I report directly to the Commander-in-Chief, and my aim here is to try to forward think the 5-10 upcoming years to what we should have in mind to develop so that we can get up to the point.
No, that's excellent. Yeah, vision from senior leadership goes a long way, for those that are actually putting their hands on the work. So it's good that you're thinking that forward. You implemented and were head of the Regional Cyber Competence Center for Western Switzerland. Can you just explain what was the gap? I think you referred to that as the RC3. Can you just explain what the gap that center was trying to solve? And what was its main mandate when you implemented that?
The Regional Cyber Competence Center, RC3, for Western Switzerland, comes from the national strategy for combating cybercrime in Switzerland. So it comes from the national strategy. And the idea behind this is Switzerland, small country, 26 cantons, 26 police. It doesn't make sense that each police department invests in the whole spectrum for combating cybercrime. The idea here is to put together infrastructure, competences, knowledge, tools, obviously, for the benefit of a whole. This is why we created this competence center based in Geneva, working for all Western Switzerland. That means the French-speaking part of Switzerland. And we do some specific investigations or technical analysis for those French-speaking part of Switzerland. And I think this is a very important idea that we need to put our forces together to grow, and not that everyone is doing the same thing with all the money and the resources that is needed for this.
It sounds very similar to what, we build a center of excellence here to do very similar things, in the U.S. Two different parts of the world, but very similar ideas. You mentioned in 2023, you took on a new position as the Chief Cyber Strategy Officer. Can you just talk a little bit about that role and what does that role focus on?
The role is more than forward-thinking for what's upcoming in the years. And this is based on the Vision 2030 Plus of Geneva Police, which the Commander-in-Chief announced to the press a couple of years ago now. And this Vision 2030 Plus assesses some aspect of the future, like how will we treat or be at the service to our senior population. Another thing is mobility. What will be the future of mobility, autonomous cars, drones, and so on. And one of the aspects is the Metaverse. I'm focusing here in the Vision 2030 Plus in the Metaverse aspect. The idea here is to see what will these virtual world evolve and how will we manage this. We build a strategy in 3 points. The first one is training, police training. How will we get advantage of these virtual benefits in training police officers in the future? Meaning, how will we get the positive aspect of this in making situation that we couldn't train in real life, too dangerous or too complex to put in place. I refer to this as well as in the medical sector, where you have more and more capabilities to train surgeons and other type of specific medicines in virtual world. The second aspect is prevention, and this is obviously something very important that we assess now globally. We need to fight cybercrime, find cybercriminals, but also inform the population and make the global awareness of the population getting higher regarding cybercrime. In this, we have a project which is called Metapol. We have an alliance with a university in Neuchâtel in Switzerland and a university in Trois-Rivières in Canada to work on several aspects. So Canada is working on more forensics aspects on the Metaverse. The University of Neuchâtel is working on the legal aspect for these new territories, if we can say so. And we're working in Geneva for the policing in the Metaverse. So there were a couple of studies who were very interesting on how the population could evolve in these kind of universes. The first one is the World Economic Forum in 2022 made a study saying that in 2026, 25% of the world population would spend 1 hour in the Metaverse per day. So it won't be me, I'm too old for this. But this is probably something aiming to. Another very interesting study is about the younger generations, the 5-7 years from now. The question is, what is more important for you? Is it your digital life or your physical life? And the outcome of this study is that for these generations that will be adults in 10 years, the digital life is more important than the physical life. So this is why we're aiming to what we call the digital twin. As we think that the population will evolve with a trend to need a different kind of relationship with the government, with police, obviously, we want to build a police office in the Metaverse. But of course, you cannot do this in every Metaverse. You have several Metaverses, regulated, unregulated, private, public Metaverse, and we don't have the jurisdiction to go in some Metaverse and say we are the police. So, as I'm also part of the Interpol Metaverse Expert Group, the idea is to take what we learned there as Interpol built their own Metaverse, so their headquarters based in Lyon, are built in the Metaverse, a private Metaverse. So the idea here is to build a similar Geneva police station in the Metaverse, to build some bindings with the population. We have a wonderful museum, police museum, in the main building. Problem is this museum is behind security. So nobody sees this museum, and people working there don't see it anyway because they pass through every day. So this would be a module, and the idea is to build some modules in the metaverse to make the combination with the population. Prevention, making some events also for the population. And the final idea here is to give the opportunity for these victims maybe to make a complaint in the metaverse. Many people came to me saying that if they were a victim in the metaverse, they would prefer to go to the police and make a complaint in the metaverse rather than going on a real police office. And here's another study which is very interesting. It's more in the medical sector. The question is, would you prefer to go to a doctor to tell you problems, or would you prefer to go to systems, AI, to explain what you have? And the outcome of this study is very interesting. People would prefer to go to system rather than to doctors to express their problems because of the fear of judgment. And I can easily make the parallel between victims. How many victims don't come to the police because they fear the judgment of the police officer? So the idea here is not to replace police officers, but it's to give an alternative to these upcoming generations who will need probably another interface with the government and the police.
It's so good that you're so forward-leaning from a vision perspective. And there are a couple interesting points there that you make. When you talk about metaverse and medical procedures and education and training, you could really envision how in the metaverse you could train officers during enforcement operations. Is almost a practice area where they could make mistakes and learn from it. And it might be even more cost effective as opposed to trying to bring everybody and have everybody travel into one area. And you could do it in the metaverse. A lot of interesting points there. And I think some of the younger kids and the younger generation, according to the studies that you mentioned, if they are going to spend an hour a day in the metaverse in the year 2026, that might be how they want to be educated. So it's good that police forces are forward-thinking and forward-leaning in that space. You mentioned something else about partnering with academia. And when you say that, I automatically think of public-private partnerships. And obviously, you're a senior official, you're a senior leader there within the Geneva Police Department. And I'm curious, so when you think about public-private partnerships between police and industry, what other types of public-private partnerships are you involved in, or do you want to be involved in to continue with that success with industry? Are there any others that you're thinking of?
Yeah, the thing is, I think the world is becoming more and more complex. Too complex to be able to be handled by police officers who do some upcoming training to be able to address these complex problems. Because at a certain point, there are some it's a job. It's a specific job. If you say so in English, I'm not sure. You have to learn it, to practice this, to be efficient. And you cannot be efficient in 10 or 20 jobs. You have to do one or two. So the idea here is to partnership police with private sector, obviously. This is something that we are more and more focusing on because we won't be able to train police officers at the level that the private sector can give us the value in investigations. But when I talk about public-private partnerships, it's not just buying tools, it's really trying to find a way to bind and think forward what would be the future of the problem we assess or we try to address, but also the relationship. And this is something which is very important to us, is to bind this relationship forward thinking.
Sorry to interrupt this powerful message from Patrick, but Patrick's point is reinforced by panelists from his main stage discussion at Lynx, and I thought it made sense to hear thoughts from the NYPD Intelligence Division, Megan Teubner, who explained how education and training is a key pillar to the public-private partnerships that Patrick is describing. Let's listen in.
I know we all kind of deal with it, at least in the law enforcement side of things, and that's the capacity building and education part of cryptocurrency in law enforcement. It's an education thing and helping our officers have a better understanding of how to investigate crimes that have a crypto element, what to look for when they're responding to crimes. At the NYPD, the size of the organization alone makes this a challenge when you have 30,000 plus officers. To level set that education across the board is a huge challenge, and that's where partnerships really come into play. And our partnerships with the private sector, with Chainalysis, helping us develop training that can get out to a wider audience, provide resources that are online that we can direct officers to, so that when they respond to a crime and they see a piece of paper with a random kind of string of words on it, that they may then know that that is a seed phrase and that they should take that as evidence and they should note that and then look for other evidence of cryptocurrency, right? So a lot of the challenges that we face start at that basic education level and getting that out there to the widest possible audience.
Great point by Megan. And as the moderator of that panel, it was great to have insights from various police departments in the UK, Switzerland, and the US, who all strongly believe in the power of the public and private sector, sharing information, tools, expertise, and technology. Now back to our episode where Patrick will explain why the letter A is missing from our public-private partnership discussions.
Also, everybody talks about PPP, so public-private partnerships, but I always put an A for academics, as you said, because the universities, some technical schools, engineering, they are so important because they work on certain subjects, forward-thinking, and we can absolutely benefit from these studies and this partnership. So we work with several universities. I go to university to speak to the students. Also, I review some of their master's degree or bachelor's degrees exams, and we work together. So as I said, the university ELC in Neuchâtel, or the University of Quebec Trois-Rivières in Canada, but of course in Geneva as well. In Lausanne, we have a very famous École des Sciences Criminelles where we try to more and more partnership with to benefit from this academic part of the partnership. And then we're open to any partnership. We also even partnership with other departments in Europe, trying to the US, Asia as well. It's a signed partnership, so we're open to sign a partnership. So the commander-in-chief, but it's more like to benefit each other of what we can exchange, so we don't have, again, and this is the same spirit of the Regional Cyber Competence Center, so that we don't develop everything so many times, and if we can benefit from each other, it's much better.
That always makes it a plus. Let me shift gears here real quick. We're seeing regulation in digital assets pick up with MiCA. Heavy discussions in the U.S. and even digital asset-focused regulators in Dubai, regulatory frameworks in Hong Kong, Singapore, Canada. From your perspective, do the regulations align with either your departments or law enforcement in general, however you want to address that? Does it align with goals in combating crimes involving crypto?
We always aim to the main objective, but then we have regulatory frameworks that sometimes don't allow us to work together and to exchange information. And the exchange of information is something very critical at police, at least in Geneva or Switzerland, that we don't have the possibility to exchange information the way it would be the most efficient for the case or for combating criminals. Whatever the regulations or the aim is, I think that the future will be more in how do we adapt the regulations and the legal framework to exchange more and more information to be more effective and more quick.
You've talked about a lot of forward-leaning things, and we've talked about the younger generation, we've talked about the Metaverse and how they learn and how we train and educate them. I'm curious, let's talk about people and expertise and hiring and how you think about hiring the right personnel that fits in with a lot of this vision and forward leaning that you're doing. When I think about crypto, things change very fast. In the metaverse, things are changing really fast and different jurisdictions are ahead of others. How do you think about hiring young officers that have to deal with all of this? Is there a strategy that the department, are there any best practices I know I struggled with it as a senior leader and constantly trying to hire the best people. But I'm curious from your perspective, how do you think about it?
Yes, this is definitely a challenge we face since a couple of years already. And it becomes more and more difficult to find the right people at police to fit these very specific roles in combating cybercrime. But we need police officers, so this is very important. And so I see two aspects. First of all, we need police officers. So we need to find and hire future police officers with a digital or cyber background that we could then use for these tasks. But at the same time, as I said before, the world is becoming more and more complex and becomes difficult to have an expertise in everything. So we are more and more looking in subject matter experts that could join police force to be better, quicker in investigation. So we have a strategy to have a mix with police and civil personnel that we hire to work together. And this is the case we had with the combating cryptocurrency or blockchain. We hired last year 2 highly qualified civil personnel who work with the police in criminal cases. And the strategy we have for now, it's till 2027, to have other field of development, not only crypto, but also AI stuff, some deep fakes, how to address deep fakes and this kind of stuff. So we have a strategy on hiring civil personnel every year till 2027 and hopefully after that as well, to be more efficient and to really have an expertise in these domains.
You know, we're here at Lynx. It's early in the conference. One of the first times here in New York, we have a lot of international partners here. And from your perspective, you've listened to a lot of the sessions that are ongoing. And I'm curious, has anything caught your eye, early in the conference, or anything that's interested you most that's come up during the sessions that you've listened to?
In general, the conference is amazing, and I listened to all these very high professionals sharing, and this is what is so important at these kinds of events, that you meet people and you have time to exchange what you wouldn't have if you do this online, obviously. What I got now, I have plenty of business cards in my wallet now, and I try to write to everyone because it gives you so many inspiring ideas to work forward, and it helps a lot to build a strategy with this. So you had those people explaining their cases, how police officers come and share what they did in some specific cases. You have these more private sector who explain what's the vision of the private sector for some aspect, and this is crucial, I think, for police. To have this partnership with the private sector who can sometimes give you ideas, because private sector has a more global overview on what's going on in the world. And so this, obviously, in Geneva, we can benefit from it. So it's very important event.
Agreed, 100%. And during my session, I challenged the audience to make sure that they spoke to 10 new people that they didn't know. I'm going to put you on the spot. And did you meet that challenge yet and meet 10 new people that you didn't know?
I met more than 10 people.
No,
just away coming here for the recording, I met 2 other people and just quickly exchanged business cards. And because people are interested in knowing more what we're thinking in Geneva about Metaverse specifically in this case, but we are very interested in their vision and to confront the ideas, to know what others are thinking. And this is totally met the 10 people.
No, that's good to hear. Yeah, I've always thought myself that when you interact with people, in a face-to-face setting, it's human nature that you're going to be more willing to help, when you need something. And it just gets back to that theme of partnerships, whether it's, public-private partnership or a public-public partnership. Law enforcement, as you know, in general, will be more willing to help out right now, with a sense of urgency when you call them, when you have that opportunity to interact. And we are all fascinated by how, there's different comes to policing. So really appreciate you being here.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It's a pleasure. And thank you again for the opportunity.
Yeah, you got it. This was another powerful episode from our Live from Lynx series. And next week, we'll have our last installment where Tigran Gambarian shares a powerful discussion with Chainalysis about his nightmarish situation in Nigeria. We appreciate all of those who share these episodes on social media with their crypto compliance teams and even their peers in the industry. Your engagement is the reason why we are one of the top podcasts at the intersection of crypto, blockchain, policy, and compliance. Keep on sharing and stay safe.